'cause we lost everything.
With the closing credits rolling and the final chapter of our V's story having drawn to a close, a feeling of both excitement and sadness began to wash over me. Excitement because the closing of this final chapter brought to an end over a year of incredible, absorbing gameplay, and completed the arcs of a myriad number of stories that had begun to flourish throughout our time with the game. But this was mixed with the sadness of leaving this deeply engrossing and fleshed out world and all of its characters and personalities behind us, at least until the arrival of Phantom Liberty. It wasn't until I'd finished offloading my immediate thoughts partway through the credit sequence that I realised another feeling had quickly begun to take hold. One of doubt, of remorse for V. Fresh off the back of a resounding feeling of pride and admiration for the redemptive arc that Johnny had taken over the course of the game, exemplified by a number of his actions both before the parting of our two main heroes and after, I'd almost forgotten to take the time to process what had actually happened to our V, and the potential fates that could be awaiting her on the other side of the black wall. Once we were put back into V's shoes after the credits had finally ended, this feeling really hit home. I collected the bonus items left behind by CDPR as a nice little thank you for finishing the game, sped over to the Ebonike to see what might be laying in wait behind the keycarded door, and ended up finishing the video with a rather deflated, oh well, is what it is. Until Phantom Liberty, I guess. I didn't realise until watching the final episode again that this was actually my subconscious nod towards how we had completed V's journey and the path we had locked her into, more than an assessment of the slightly underwhelming secret on Board Smasher's ship. It took me a day or so after finishing the game to decide that whilst our own V's fate had been sealed, and I will always consider the decisions that I had made within the Mikoshi access node to be her canon, I would go back and take a closer look at what that fate means for not only V and Johnny, but also all of the people whose lives were intertwined with the two, and what a world without Valerie looks like for her nearest and dearest. I also wanted to further explore my decisions at Mikoshi, and why what I thought at the time were the choices made with V's best interests at heart had left me with such a hollow feeling of unfulfillment. I'll also be looking at the other endings of the game that would have been open to us had different paths been chosen. Paths that would have had us relying on the strength of loyalty and friendship. Paths of betrayal. Paths of self-belief and sacrifice. Even the path of death. This is in no way attempting to rewrite the decisions made before. There can be no such thing as a fairy tale happily ever after in Night City. But this is an exploration into how close V could have come to happiness, and what sacrifices might have been made in order to attain it. The Temperance ending, the fate that befell our V at the end of the series, is one of two possible endings obtainable by taking the pseudo-endotriazine pill and letting Johnny take the wheel after Misty leaves V to contemplate her fate on the rooftop overlooking Little China. Johnny makes a beeline for the afterlife and, after a little bit of light persuasion, convinces Rogue to help him in bringing down Mikoshi, whilst also putting the final piece in place that will help V to rid herself of the relic and live on without Johnny sharing her brain space. The two finally set their grievances aside and spend the night together, yay, and set off for Arasaka Tower, aided by the tank-like solo Crispin Wayland. Now, I won't replay the entire rampage through at Arasaka Tower, as it's all there in the last couple of episodes of the series, but Johnny eventually makes it to the Mikoshi access node, having to literally crawl the last few meters to the jack-in point, as V's body almost totally succumbs to the rigors of the battle it's just been through, coupled with the conflict that's still raging between the Relic's nanomachine army and V's sleeping consciousness. This will play a part in an important decision in just a few moments. Once inside the system, Johnny's surprised to find that not only is V already present in cyberspace as a freshly written engram, but she's also been brought up to speed on Alt's progress with the preparations to reintegrate her with her body, as well as some rather grim but not totally unexpected news on her plans for the constructs already stored within the Mikoshi orbital servers.
She did say she'd destroy Mikoshi, just as you agreed. Gonna release all those poor bastards only to suck them into her own bosom. Make them part of herself.
Alt then appears out of the blue to deliver the news that V's body and mind have deteriorated more than was anticipated, and that her brain has effectively been restructured to specifically support Johnny's consciousness and no other, including V's. It's at this point in the final sequence of events that I made my first vital blunder. Part of Alt's explanation to V about her dire situation is that if she were to return to her physical body, she would have no chance to survive within her own heavily modified brain, and Alt was powerless to stop both the relic nanomachines and V's own immune system from destroying her from within. Alt then goes on to make this comment.
V will die independent of what I do. This is inevitable. This is imminent.
Having just witnessed Johnny unable to pilot V's body to the Mikoshi access point without crashing to the floor in a heap, V's battered and besieged body seemingly on the verge of giving up the fight, I mistakenly took Alt's somewhat vague news of V's imminent physical death as meaning that V returning to her physical form would be tantamount to an immediate death sentence. With a picture forming in my mind of her engram returning to her physical state and not even making it back up out to street level before her body and brain gave out on her, the wheels were slowly set in motion, travelling in the wrong direction. Whilst V takes a moment to wrap her head around the situation, I went through a few scenarios for how this could all play out, and eventually came to the conclusion that Johnny Silverhand, the newly reformed Johnny, would stick to the pledge he made to V, to offer up his life in order to give V the chance to return to her body to live out the rest of her life, however desperately short we might believe that to be.
You're my friend, V. I'd never pull that on you. Never do you wrong.
V then quite deflatedly responds with,
Seeing as how I'm doomed to die, we stick to the plan I gave you. I leave, you stay. Keys to my body are yours.
I was slightly thrown by this, not only because Johnny had previously promised to lay down his life for hers, but also because I'd forgotten about this plan that V says she's agreed with us. To this day, I'm not 100% sure what she's referring to here, though it may be a reference to her response to Johnny's promise made in the Pistis Sophia.
Want to be clear, I will do you no wrong. When the time comes, it'll be my life for yours. I'll agree to get white.
Oh, wow.
Tags are proof of my promise.
I do the same for you.
Then, my second error, this time totally on me. Presented with two dialogue options, I mistakenly read the first line available to us as meaning something akin to, "You go with Alt V and you'll live on forever." V's sudden change of course, coupled with what I believed I knew about her chances of survival back in the real world, made me think that there might actually be a chance of a life for V if she accompanied Alt over the bridge. Of course, I now realise that this was Johnny putting himself forward to be pulled through into whatever form of existence is waiting through the black wall in the old net, but V's venomous response again spun those wheels yet further in the wrong direction, and so the negative momentum increased.
It's gonna be me.
You lying sack of shit.
Crossing the bridge that reaches out towards Alt's rift and the black wall beyond, V stops Johnny in his tracks, saying his name in what seemed to be a pleading tone of voice, though I now wonder if this was actually an emotional sign of gratitude for what Johnny was about to do for her. Taking this as a sign, right or wrong, that V truly doesn't want us to sacrifice Johnny, I then doubled back towards the well, the option that would return Johnny to the physical realm as the sole inhabitant of V's body. Now, led this time by confusion and misunderstanding, I again begin to weigh up my options using freshly tainted evidence. First, that V faces no life at all by returning to her body, My question is, what happens to V if Johnny crosses the bridge? Does Alt sort of like only take one of us or something? And then that Johnny believes V will have a chance at life by following Alt's lead. The option that I chose before I stood up was, you go with Alt, you get to live on. I feel like returning to the body is the only way that V gets to exist. And that was that. My mind accelerating rapidly in full reverse gear, I had Johnny enter the well, sealing our V's fate. I got such a bad feeling. So this is Johnny's engram being written permanently now into V's brain. Oh, I hope V gets to live on in cyberspace, I really do. Beginning a series of interactions expanding on his life in the intervening months, Johnny enlists his young neighbour Steve to give him a ride into the city to run a couple of errands. It's quickly apparent that Johnny's had a positive impact on this kid's life, and this is further reinforced when later, at the time machine, Johnny picks out a Freem electric guitar that he obviously has no intention of keeping for himself.
Best day ever. Fuck! My hands are shaking.
The two talk about Steve's musical prospects and ambitions and eventually arrive at the columbarium, where Johnny completes his order of 2 individual niches. One for his old tune, partner in crime and lover Rogue, and one for our own departed V. Paying his last respects and saying a final goodbye, Johnny leaves a memento of their impact on Night City with each.
Thanks for... well, for everything.
Johnny then boards a bus heading out of Night City, destination unknown. From the changes in Johnny's actions, attitudes, and words throughout the game, punctuated by his simple acts of kindness to a down-and-out kid from a broken home, I feel confident when I say that Johnny, the Johnny Silverhand that we helped to shape and form in our own way throughout the game, the product of the actions and choices that we made, and the man who learned so much about his impact on the world and the people within it simply by observing life through the eyes of another, will go on to be a much better version of himself, to right some of the wrongs that he had made and approach life in a more appreciative and considerate way than he did during his first life over 5 decades ago. But one decision made in the months following V's departure seems bizarrely out of character for this newly reformed Rockerboy. Text messages from various key characters in V's life, along with some of the video voicemails that we see during the end credits, make it clear that despite having weeks to get himself back up on his feet and adjust to this new life that he finds himself in, Johnny has seemingly not made any effort to contact any of V's loved ones. For a person who has demonstrated time and again that they've formed a truly compassionate soul, and that they finally managed to let go of their own ego and self-serving agenda in favour of finally appreciating and selflessly supporting others, intentionally keeping those closest to the person who has helped to grant you new life in the dark about her fate seems unnecessarily cruel. What possible reason would Johnny have to put V's extended family through the heartache of not knowing, to let her lover suffer such torment unabated for so long, and to deny V's closest friends the dignity of not only making their peace with her fate, but in some cases even the knowledge of her passing from the physical world? There may be many possible answers as to why Johnny has suddenly exhibited this strange reversal of attitude, but I think that he would not have taken the decision to cut all ties with V's nearest and dearest lightly. My theory is that Johnny will have desperately wanted to contact the likes of Misty, Judy, Mama Wells, even Panam and the older Caldos to bring them up to speed on events and to deliver the news that wherever she might be now, Valerie will never again be part of their lives. I do believe that Johnny would have dutifully served to answer the multitude of questions that V's closest allies would have had about her fate, and would have willfully acted as a conduit for their pain and anger, if it were not for one particular individual. I think that Johnny would have realised, as I have, that a credible threat to this renewed future of his was nestled right at the core of V's circle of friends. Vic Vector.
You hear me? I need your help. We must get to Ripadok. Quickly.
Let's get her inside.
Gotta cut my way through the occipital bone. No other way.
There is risk of...
I know what I'm doing.
Vic has demonstrated on multiple occasions that he very much cares for V, often going out of his way to line her up with the latest cyberware, patching her up when she's fallen, giving words of encouragement and cheering her on from her corner of the ring, on one occasion quite literally. Vic comes across as having an almost paternal bond with V, and despite some moments of tension between the two towards the end, genuinely wants only the best for her. Vic bears no love for Johnny Silverhand, demonstrated multiple times through dialogue with V, where he refers to Johnny as that thing and a terrorist.
You mean to say there's an actual terrorist in my head right now?
That's right. Johnny Silverhand. AHQ bombing. His doing. Do I have to spell it out? It's in your hands, not mine, and not those of that thing in your head.
For Vic to learn that V is forever gone, and her body is now being inhabited by someone he considers to be nothing more than a cold-blooded mass murderer, I think this would be enough to push the former heavyweight fighter to take drastic, permanent measures. Johnny, having spent the intervening months well out of the way in a forgotten residential block in Westwind Estate, leaves Night City without saying a word to anyone, neither V's contacts nor his own. I think that Johnny was honestly wise not to, though it does raise the question of whether he might make contact once out on the road, or after he reaches whatever destination he's headed to. V's phone book has been stripped down to only a handful of contacts, namely the ones who have tried to send messages to check up on her following weeks of silence. It's very possible that Johnny has opened a new Hollow account with a separate number running in tandem with V's, where he's copied some or all of the contacts. But in either case, Johnny still has a line of communication open with some of V's core Chumbatas. I sincerely hope that he does take this step, though even if he never contacts them again, we can at least take some slim amount of solace in the fact that Johnny has left behind a final tribute to V in the form of a niche at the city's columbarium, and anybody who's able to attain ownership of it can prove beyond doubt the meaning of the gesture when the bullet pendant is found inside.
Thanks for... well, for everything.
Though there are still many questions over Johnny's intentions and actions, I still stand by what I said earlier. I'm immensely proud of the transformation that Johnny has been through during the course of our time with him, and I honestly believe that the Johnny we have shaped during the final act will go on to make the best of the renewed time he's been given, and not squander the opportunity to live a life of giving and dedication to others by letting pride or overbearing thirst for revenge get in the way.
Think it's true? Think there'll be another war?
Asking the wrong guy. Got no interest in the topic. Know why?
Why?
Because I realized I don't have to.
I also believe that he truly recognizes the sacrifice that our V has made for him, and that he'll go on to honor that sacrifice as he begins anew out in the wider world. The fate of our V is, almost implausibly, less certain than Johnny's. After sealing her path through an uncertain series of decisions, we had allowed Ult to take V to the end of the Bridge of Light and through the Black Wall, into whatever digital realm still exists out there in the ravaged remains of the pre-data crash net. In my mind, there exists two possibilities for our V. Scenario A. Alt equips V for a life among the AIs and daemons of the old net. If Alt is true to her word, she may take V through to the other side and begin to form her into a more robust entity, capable of standing up for herself in a landscape plagued with dangerous AIs, viruses, deranged and chaotic engrams, and potentially other powerful higher beings similar to Alt herself. This is a process that will take time and will likely leave V vulnerable to attack from all angles. But V is a capable fighter, both in her cunning and resolve, and in her advanced abilities in quick hacking and demon manipulation. This, I believe, would put her in a stronger position than most to survive in such a harsh environment, and would have been something that would have been recognised almost immediately by Alt when they first met, courtesy of the Voodoo Boys a few weeks previously, though whether such recognition could lead to V's downfall remains to be seen. There is, of course, also the likelihood that the process of forming V into an adaptable, resilient digital entity will result in almost everything that made her Valerie, her thoughts, memories, personality, her dreams, and her bonds with the aspects and people of her former life will be stripped away, leaving only the bare, logical core of her intelligence to go on in the new plane of existence she finds herself in. Scenario B. Alt, having already begun the process of subsuming the multitude of constructs brought through from the Mikoshi servers, chooses not to expend the time and energy needed to help V adapt to her new digital form, and instead lines her up among the hundreds or thousands of captured souls as she tears down each construct's code one by one, cannibalizing the most gifted, skilled, and potent elements from each digitized mind before dissolving the rest away. This is the scenario that frightens me most for our V. To simply have the skills and mastery of a certain element of her offensive capabilities ripped out of her, and the rest of her psyche simply deleted like a string of trash data, is horrifying. Neither form of existence in the digital realm is something that I would wish upon our V, and if I were armed with the information I have now, I would have certainly chosen the other path back at Mikoshi. But of the two possible scenarios that I've put before V by sending her through the Black Wall, I'm actually hopeful that the first one, Alt helping V to become a viable entity in the digital world, is actually the more likely of the two. Alt made a deal with Johnny and V to separate their consciousnesses and to save V in return for access to the Mikoshi servers. Whilst the parameters of what exactly it means to save V have changed dramatically, I believe that Alt, having successfully separated the two minds from one another and having acquired what she needed from Mikoshi before destroying it entirely, would still be willing to uphold her end of the deal and do what she can to secure some sort of future for V, not because of some human trait like honor or sympathy, but rather because doing so simply satisfies the conditions of the deal. Alt is an extremely complex and fluid AI system based in part on the neural structure of a long-dead net-running legend, but at her core she's still a computer program, bound by specified goals, logic, and process. She's tasked herself with satisfying the parameters of the goals laid out in the agreement, and to err from that would be illogical. To this end, I believe that V is still out there somewhere on the other side of Nightwatch's colossal firewall, kicking digital asses and eating Bartmoss's rabbits viruses for breakfast. But I suspect that she now exists as a wholly different entity to the complex, emotional, wisecracking V that we guided through Night City, and that if we should ever meet her again in any form, the Valerie of old will have been all but washed away.
Just promise me one thing, asshole. You won't forget me.
Avie, I know you're a free bird and all, and you're gonna do what you want when you want.
Vic, clearly in denial about V's suspected fate, makes what is probably the latest in a string of calls whilst putting on a facade that quickly cracks.
But you could at least let me know you're alive, you know? Just call when you can, okay? See ya.
Torn to shreds by V's sudden disappearance, Judy calls, desperate to understand whether she'd done something wrong that pushed V away, or worse.
V, I don't know where we went wrong. Maybe something happened, or you needed to lay low. if you can, just give me some kind of signal that you're alive and everything's okay. Please.
The most cruel part of this is that Judy's overarching concern is that V's alive and well. Their relationship, though obviously a concern, comes secondary in her mind. The reality of the situation being an almost opposite image of Judy's concerns here is heartbreaking.
Hello, V. How are things?
Panam and the Aldecaldos also get in touch, missing their honorary family member after not hearing from her for some time.
Weather in the Badlands is pleasant as usual. My cooler melted, it's 90 degrees in the shade, and there's sandstorms heading straight for us. So yeah, you're missing out. And to think if it wasn't for you, I'd still be stumbling my way through Night City. So I just want to say thank you. For all you've done for me. I'd still be lost if you hadn't set me on the right track.
They, of course, have no idea that V might be missing and had probably only heard bits and pieces of information regarding Arasaka Tower and the aftermath.
Hello, V. Saul speaking. Heard about something big happening in Night City, with a certain V in the lead role. You're one of us now, V. You're an Aldecaldo. Remember that.
Okay, well, all of us have been wondering when you're finally gonna drop by. Don't know what you got on your plate right now, but remember, you're welcome out here anytime. All right, now, take care.
I'd mentioned a few times in the past that the Aldecaldos felt as close to a family as V had ever experienced, and so them reaching out was a really nice touch after such a bleak ending.
Hey, V, so funny thing just said. Oh, fuck's sake, voicemail again.
Kerry, oblivious to the world as always, calls in with an update.
Do you ever answer the phone? Like ever? Seriously, I can get through to data term customer service faster than you. You know that Us Cracks agent called me and asked if I would go on tour with them. I could actually be fun. So, who knows? Well, there's the latest gossip for you, if you care. Call me back when you can, okay? Bye!
It's clear from his tone that he has no idea that V has disappeared off the face of the earth, but more importantly, that Johnny hasn't made any attempt to contact him since the attack on Arasaka.
V, hey. So, here's the thing.
River gets in touch for the first time in a while, possibly offering an olive branch.
Couple fellas from the 5th Precinct busted a shop selling illegal iron. I still remember what you did for us. For me and Randy. The city needs more people like you. I'm gonna make sure they're equipped. This one's on me, V. See you around.
Good guy, but sadly, too little, too late. And then a contender against Judy for the most heart-wrenching call of the night.
Before samurai committed to seppuku, they wrote Jisei, a death poem. Yet, I am not a samurai, so I bid you farewell with simple words. Rot in hell, Kusama.
An honest, honourable man, Goro was a genuinely good soul trapped in a blind allegiance to the wrong side, strongly hinting that he intends to commit seppuku for his failures to protect the Arasaka family interests. Goro retained his honour to the very end, despite devoting and sacrificing his life to a soulless megacorp.
Hey, V. Jefferson Perales here.
Jefferson Perales, another of V's contacts who's been out of the picture for a while, and therefore would have no clue about her disappearance, reaches out with a genuinely intriguing offer.
What do you say about being the head of my security detail, huh? Come by, we'll hammer out a good deal for you. I'm no any pincher when it comes to safety.
I really think this would have been an interesting opportunity for V, if she had been around to take it. And finally, Misty.
Hey, V. Sorry to bother you. I know you're a busy woman and everything. But, well, I was wondering how you were doing, so I laid out a quick tarot and... Oh, dear. The Hanged Man, the Magician, the Star. Those are not good cards, V. They're really bad. There's something like death, but not quite. Take care of yourself, okay? I hope to hear from you soon.
something like death, but not quite. Misty, once again, seeing the path that is laid out before V so clearly, gives her final tarot reading, likely already knowing that she would never pick up the message to see it. She could see the darkness coming from a mile off and tried to warn V in her own way on several occasions, but the darkness kept on coming for V in this particular path. This is the end of the trail for our V and for Johnny, and the Temperance path will forever be the true ending for our playthrough. This is also something of a tribute to V, and to the evolution that she's gone through during our time with her in Night City. After more than a year of guiding her through the game, it's a weird feeling of almost detachment coming out the other end, knowing that she met the fate that she did. As I'd mentioned before, I've no intention of rewriting the past, and I totally intend to stick with the decisions that I made. I just wish I had a bit more clarity when I made them. In the next couple of videos, we'll be back to more of a normal playstyle, going through the other endings that were open to V and Johnny had we chosen different paths. For now though, if you've enjoyed this dive into my thoughts and feelings on the ending of our playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077, then please do leave a like, I really appreciate it. And if you've any thoughts of your own on how things panned out, then why not leave a comment below? I'd love to hear your take on the Temperance ending, and I'm sure there are plenty of aspects that I've not even thought of that could spin my theories on their head. But until next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.